So, you got really good at playing Catan and decided to buy the Cities and Knights expansion, and now you need to know how to play it. Just one problem. Cities and Knights is really complicated. You could read and reread the rules over and over, but reading is boring and rules are for nerds, so instead you went to YouTube to find a tutorial. So, how do you play Cities and Knights? Cities and Knights makes a fundamental change to the way cities work in the game. Instead of placing 2 settlements at the beginning of a game, you'll place 1 settlement first, and second, you'll place 1 city. In the build phase, your city will generate 1 resource for each hex adjacent to it. However, once the game begins, you'll treat it like a normal city. Sort of. See, if you place your city on wheat or clay, it will generate 2 of that resource, like in base Catan. However, if you place your city on sheep, stone, or wood, then when your number is rolled, you'll produce 1 resource and 1 commodity. There are 3 distinct commodities. Wood produces paper, sheep produces cloth, and stone produces coins. These commodity cards can be traded in 4-to-1 or 3-to-1 with a port, like any Catan resource card, or they can be used to build city improvements. Each commodity contributes to a specific improvement track, the paper, cloth, and coin tracks. Okay, cool. I can improve my city tracks, but why would I do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Each track has 5 tiers. Tier 1 costs 1 of the appropriate commodity, Tier 2 costs 2, and so on all the way up to Tier 5, which costs 5 of the requisite commodity. Reason number 1 to improve your city tracks is to get progress cards. When you roll the dice in Cities and Knights, you'll also be rolling the event die, which will either show a colored church or a barbarian ship. Well, when the event die shows a colored church, either blue, green, or yellow, and the red die shows a number that you have unlocked on that color's track, you get a progress card. The higher your tier, the higher your chance of getting a progress card. There are far too many progress cards for me to describe them all in this video, so for your convenience, I've created another video with a progress card tier list that describes each progress card and what they do. Speaking briefly, however, the green progress card deck is the best, followed by the blue and yellow progress card decks. You also unlock additional rewards when you reach the 3rd tier of each track. The 3rd tier of the cloth track will let you trade in any of the 3 commodity types at a 2-to-1 rate. The 3rd tier of the coin track unlocks the ability to upgrade your knights to power level 3, and the 3rd tier of the paper track allows you to collect any 1 card of your choice from the 5 base resource types anytime a number is rolled that does not produce resources for you. Unless, of course, that number is a 7.
But wait, there's more!
If you become the first player to reach level 4 of any of the 3 tracks, you are rewarded with a metropolis for that track. The metropolis is worth 2 victory points and makes your chosen city invulnerable to being destroyed by the barbarian. But watch out. If another player reaches tier 5 while you are still at tier 4, they will steal your metropolis forever. The flip side is that if you can reach tier 5 of a track while another player is still at tier 4, you can steal their metropolis forever. Nice. Also, if you lose your last city, you're not allowed to buy any more city improvements. So, try not to lose all your cities. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Why would I lose a city? And what are level 3 knights? Let's talk about the second part of Cities and Knights. The knights. Oh, and the barbarian. There are no development cards in Cities and Knights. Instead, there are progress cards and knights. You can purchase and build a knight with 1 sheep and 1 stone, and you can activate your knight with 1 wheat. You can also upgrade your knights to power levels 2 and 3 with 1 stone and 1 sheep each time, although power level 3 is not available unless you've finished certain city improvements. Knights must be placed along your existing roads in the same vertices that settlements can be built in, although a knight does not have to be any specific distance away from a settlement or from another knight. Each time you use an active knight, he is deactivated and must be reactivated with 1 wheat before he can be used again. You can reactivate a knight on the same turn you use it on, but you cannot use a knight on the same turn you activate or reactivate it on. An active knight can do several things. First, an active knight can be used to move the robber, much like the knight card from base Catan. However, the robber must be on a hex adjacent to the knight's vertex in order for that knight to move the robber. Second, you can move your knight along your roads to a different vertex. You cannot move the knight to a vertex with a settlement or city on it, and the vertex you move the knight to must be connected by an unbroken line of roads to the vertex your knight started on. Third, you can displace another player's knight, moving your knight to a vertex connected to your roads with another player's knight currently on it. However, you can only displace another player's knight if your knight has a higher power level than theirs. When you displace another player's knight, they must move it to another open vertex along their own road line. If they have no other open vertex, they must remove their knight from the board. Finally, your knights can be used to fight the barbarian. Oh, right. I should tell you about the barbarian. The barbarian ship starts at the beginning of this track, and every time the event die rolls the barbarian ship, it moves one spot closer to the end of the track. When the barbarian ship reaches the end, it attacks. When a player rolls the dice and triggers the barbarian attack must be resolved before that player's turn begins, and before resources are collected by any player. The barbarian has a power level equal to the current number of cities on the board. The power level of the players is equal to the total power level of all active knights held by all players. If the players have a power level equal to or higher than the barbarian's power level, then the players win. In this scenario, the player who contributed the most knight power is awarded 1 victory point. If 2 or more players tie for the most knight power, no victory points are awarded, and instead, starting clockwise from the player who rolled the barbarian attack, each player who tied for the most knight power is allowed to draw a progress card from one of the 3 progress card decks. However, if the barbarian's power level is higher than the combined power level of all the active knights on the board, then the players lose, no victory point is awarded, no progress cards are given out, and the player or players with the lowest total knight power each downgrade one city of their choice to a settlement. Regardless of whether the barbarian wins or loses, he returns to the start of his track to begin his march yet again. One more small but important addition: city walls. Cities and Knights gives you 3 city walls. Each time you build a city wall, which costs 2 clay, the number of cards you can keep in your hand and not have to discard half of your hand when a 7 is rolled increases by 2. This means that if you build all 3 city walls, you can hold 13 cards in your hand and not have to discard half of them if a 7 is rolled. But be careful. City walls can only be built under a city, and if you lose your city, you lose the city wall under it as well. The first player to reach 13 victory points wins. Note that unlike in base Catan, it is possible to reach 13 victory points on someone else's turn, as you could draw a victory point from the blue or green progress card decks, or collect 1 victory point from beating the barbarian, even on another player's turn. Now you know how to play Catan Cities and Knights. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and until next time, happy Cataning. And this is the one and only David of David's, signing off.